Hi everyone, this is Jose Mojica from iFilm Flops, and today I want to show you how to take motion capture data from HTC VIVE trackers recorded in Brekel OpenVR and map it onto a character creator 3 character in iClone 7. Okay, here we have four recordings that we've done with Brekel OpenVR. Now, Brekel OpenVR by default puts a date and a timestamp on the files. But when we're editing, what I like to do is rename these to take numbers. And I do that just so that it's easier for us to refer to a certain take later. The date and the timestamp, I think it's configurable, but we just leave it like that because it's useful later on if we need to find a particular file. But while we're editing, take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4. It's just a lot easier to refer to. Okay, so now that I've renamed these files, let's go and open MotionBuilder. Let's go to File, Open, and open Take 1 and start working with that. I'm going to accept the default open options. And here we are. Okay, this is what it looks like when we open one of the recordings. First thing I like to do is hit play on that, make sure we don't have a false take. So this one looks pretty good. The trackers are staying in place. I don't see anything flying off erratically. And this is pretty good. Everything is holding still. So, okay, so we have ourselves a good take. I'm going to stop it, rewind all the way to the beginning, and now I'm going to start by adding a skeleton. Okay, so go ahead, define a skeleton, and our task is to map all these trackers to the different bones in the skeleton. Now, OpenVR lets you name your trackers, but it turns out that we always seem to forget to rename the trackers before we start a session. So what I like to do as part of our workflow is I just select all the trackers and I right-click and say rename. And my name is going to be T1, and the software is smart enough to name the next one T2, T3, T4, and so on. And this will make it so that it's consistent between take to take in the same session. So now that I've renamed my tracker, let's go one by one here. I'm going to start with the left foot. And I click on the mesh because the mesh is easier to find, but as you can see here, it selected the mesh. What I want is the tracker. So I click above and I say that's my tracker, and now I can go to the left foot and assign the selected bone. Okay, I'm going to do that with each one. So again, I click on the mesh for right foot. That sort of highlights the parent. I click on the parent so that it's the selected one, which is the tracker, and then I assign that to the bone. I'm going to do the same thing with the next one, the left leg. Okay, I select the tracker, the mesh, and then I select the tracker, and I assign it to the bone. So basically, we want to assign the trackers themselves and not the mesh, but it's a lot easier to select the mesh when you're looking at it. So I'm going to go and do that for each one of the bones. Okay, this is just going to take me a minute or two. Now, as I'm doing that, I want to point out that all these bones that you see here on the right side on the panel are required bones. They are also optional bones that you can get by clicking on the little arrows. They're like drop-down arrows. Those expand and give you optional bones. But if you look at the number of required bones, it comes out to 15 bones. So you at least need, for this to work, 15 trackers. Now, if you count the trackers that we actually have 17 trackers because we're using 2 optional ones on the shoulders. We are also not using the headset. We're using a tracker for our head and trackers for our hands rather than using the controllers. And that was just after trial and error we figured out that was better for us. Okay, so here I'm going to do one of the optional bones. This is the shoulder. So if you notice, I'm going to click on the tracker, and then I'm going to click on the little expansion arrow, and there's my left shoulder bone. Okay, it will work without it. We just noticed that our characters looked a little hunched over when we didn't have shoulders. So we're going to do that. But the other ones are required. So you have to, well, I'm going to do another optional one first, just to take care of the shoulders. Okay, so here's the right shoulder. All right, and let's move on. Again, I click on what looks to be the tracker, but it's really the mesh. So then we move up in the tree and select the tracker and map that to the bone. And it's kind of hard to see, but let me show you once you do one here. So let me do this other one here. You sort of see a little plus. It's very faint and it's hard to see. So it's a lot easier when you're selecting your motion data to select the actual mesh first and then go to the tree and select the tracker instead, because that's what we want to map to the bones. All right, so here is the head. And like I said, we're using a tracker for that rather than the headset. And I just got a few more to go. You're going to see some yellow here instead of green, if you notice, on the left arm, but I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Just got 2 more to go. Here we go. So I'm going to assign that to my right forearm. And here is my right hand tracker. Okay. There's one more thing that I like to assign, and this is called a reference. The reference is like the root to the skeleton, and that gets mapped to that. Okay, now it's telling us that we have some warnings, and the warnings are basically telling us that the arms are not completely parallel to the floor. And that's fine. As long as your T-pose is mostly fine, this will work out. Okay, so we've mapped the trackers to the skeleton. Next step is to rename the character. And we're going to give it a name by right-clicking on character, choosing rename, and I'm going to name this Take 1. Okay, it's very important that you name your characters, because later on when we merge this data to the actual character creator character, we need to distinguish between the two. So this is Take 1. We're going to go ahead and lock the character, which creates a control rig. So when we lock the character, it's asking us, is it a biped or a quadruped? Biped is what we want to choose here. And we are mostly done. Before I save this, I am going to save this template so that for the next take, we don't have to go tracker by tracker. We can just load this template. So I'm going to save the template as, in my case, workflow. Okay? And that's it. I'm going to leave it at the default location, and I'm going to hit OK. Good. So we have our character mapped, our trackers mapped to the skeleton. We've saved the template, and now we're going to save as. And I like to name these underscore mapped. I'm going to choose the default options, and we're done. Let's go and do the same thing with take 2, except now it will be easier because we have a template. So let's open take 2. Again, I choose the defaults here, and I'm going to go. First step is I rename my trackers to match what I had before. Okay, this should be good for each session that you do. So that template should be valid for all the takes, as long as you didn't turn off trackers, turn them back on. So here I'm going to rename them again, T1 to T18, and I'm going to define a skeleton. Now, when I define my skeleton, you have to have something selected in order to load a template. I don't know why that's the case, but it makes you select something. Okay, so we're going to load our skeleton definition and load the template that we just recorded for the last take. I can delete the prefix because all my bones are named T something, and hit OK. And as you can see, everything is loaded. Now, as a sanity check, I like to see if everything is mapped to the correct thing. I'm not going to do all of them, but just do a spot check. This said that it should be to T14, and as you can see, there's a little plus by the T14 on the right tracker, so I know this one's fine. Head is supposed to be T12, so let's check it real quick. I click on 12, and yep, it's faint, but you can see a little plus by the head tracker. So we're good. So this is fine. Next step again is to rename the character. So let's go right click, rename character, and we're going to name this one Take 2. Okay, we lock the character, which creates a control rig. We say it's a biped, and we are ready to save. So we go to File, do a Save As, and this is going to be Take 2 underscore mapped. Okay, here we go. And save. Choose the default options. Save. We have 2 takes done. And we would just do the same thing with takes 3 and 4, but I'm going to skip that for you and just go on to the next step. Very well. So I've done all 4 takes, as you can see here. Take 1, 2, 3, and 4 mapped. And it's time to start working with Character Creator. And what we want to do here is export basically any character. It really doesn't matter at this stage what character you choose. Later on, I will show you how to transfer the data to the character you're actually working on for the scene. But for this part, any character will do. I just happen to like using this one character that I got from ScanLab. They have really good characters. And it sort of has the shape that my character has at the end. So I'm going to choose this character. And the only thing I do is I leave the character mostly unclothed so that it doesn't hide any of the tracking information. What we found is that sometimes you have the tracker mapped to the wrong thing, and clothes can sort of hide that. So we leave Osman mostly unclothed. So I'm going to rename my character George. And that's all I am going to basically do with this character. I'm going to export, and I'm going to choose FBX clothed character. Okay. Now, this asks me which target tool I have. I believe Maya and MotionBuilder might be the same, but I just choose MotionBuilder because MotionBuilder is what we are using. So I'm going to choose MotionBuilder, leave the defaults. Okay, everything looks fine. Click on Export and give it a file name. I'm going to put this in the same directory as my takes. Okay, so here is where I've been recording my takes, and this is going to be George. Once you have one of these characters, you can reuse it from session to session, but I am just showing you how I did this to begin with. This is going to serve as a bridge, as you will see, to get us the information to our final character. Okay, so we don't even need to save this. We are just going to close Character Creator 3, and we're done with that. Okay, let's go back to MotionBuilder. So here is MotionBuilder, and it takes a second. There we go. And now we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to load George. Okay, here's George. Done. I choose the defaults, open. Okay. Here we go. And here's George. We are going to map the bones from George to one of the skeletons here. So I'm going to go click skeleton and define. And in order to see George's bones, we go to display and do X-ray. Now we can see all the bones from a Character Creator 3 body. And let me tell you, there are hundreds of bones, it seems like. You can go on here forever trying to figure out which bones should get mapped to a MotionBuilder character. And so I've already figured that out, and that is one of the main reasons I did this video, so that you wouldn't have to go through the pain of doing this, and so that I could remember later what I did. All right, so let's go one by one here, and let me expand this a little bit and start things. Now, one of the most important ones is the hip. So let's start there and map cc_base_hip to the hip. Okay, hips. Assign, and we're done with that part. Okay, for the most part, you'll be able to select the particular bone, and that will tell you what the name of it is. So here we're going to start with the upper leg, and the upper leg is the thigh, left thigh. Okay, so I'm going to go here and right click left up leg, and notice that it automatically found the right side because of the way that the bones are named in Character Creator 3, where it's L and R. The software is smart enough to find the matching one on the other side. So that is pretty cool. I'm going to go here, find the lower part of the leg. So I map that to left leg. Okay, and that gives us the right as well. We are going to click on the foot area. There are even toes that you can map. I've never seen anyone track those, but all those bones exist. So here we go, but those are definitely optional. We don't have to worry about that. I'm going to move up, and let's see, what should we do next? Okay, let's go here to the arm. Let's start working on the arm. So this is the L upper arm. Okay, so we map that to the left arm. We are getting close. We got here, and now we're going to map the forearm. Okay, so we're going to map the forearm to the right bone. And one more, well, a couple more here. I'm going to do the hand, so left hand. Let's map the left hand over here. The couple of are a little bit hard to find. The head has a lot of bones. The spine is one of those that took us forever to figure out. It's not the waist or spine 1. Spine 2 is what you want to map to spine. That is a crucial one, or your character will be all twisted at the end. Okay, we're almost done. We need, let's see, let's find the head over here. So under spine, neck twist 2. You can also use the search above and type the word head. That lets you find that as well. But head is what you want to assign here. And as you can see, we've mapped all of our required bones. But as you saw from before, we have 2 that are optional bones. So because we use trackers also for the shoulders, let's go ahead and map those. So I have the left clavicle, and we're assigning that to that there, and it automatically found the right. Okay, that, oh no, let's do, let's do the reference point. So we take the root, the bone root, and map that to the reference, and that gives us an extra bone. All right, we are done mapping George. So next thing, just like we did with the other characters, is we're going to rename it. Right click on character, rename it, and I'm going to name this George. All right, so now we can lock this character and make it a biped. And like I said before, once this is done once, you can reuse George with any of your scenes. So this only has to be done one time. And we go and name it George_map. Choose the default save options. Okay, we're done. So the next step is to bring in the data from the takes and map those onto our George character. So we're going to go here to File. And this time, instead of Open, we're going to choose Merge. And we're going to find take1_mapped that we created before and say Open. Choose the default merge options. And now we have both characters in the same scene. I'm going to go to the characters and notice that we have George and Take1. This is why it's crucial to rename them. I double click on George and I tell it that its input is coming from a different character. It's going to come from Take1. And notice what happens as soon as I activate this. So I go to the right here and check that activate. And now you notice that George has moved over to where the trackers are. And if I go ahead and play it, we're going to see that George is being controlled by our data, our motion capture data from Take1. So that's looking pretty good. Let's rewind it here. And what I want to do next is I want to transfer the data from take one and bake it onto George. Okay, so I do that here, and now this information is being transferred from take one's character to George's and being baked into George. So now I can actually delete take one. I go and I right click on reference, which is the character from Brekel, and I select all the branches, and I go right click and say delete, confirm. All right, hit OK. I'm going to click yes to all, OK about 10 different times. Delete character, yes, yes to all, and boom, we have now only George. And if we play, because we transfer all the data from character one, from take one, and baked it onto George, now George has all those movements as part of his character. Okay. We are ready to save as. And now the name of these files is going to be the take underscore George. So I'm going to name this one take one underscore George. Done. So save, choose the default options, and we're done with this file. Let's move on to take two. Let me show you real quick how this is done, just as a review. So I open George Mapped again, and I start from the mapped version. This is why I said you're going to be reusing this George underscore mapped a lot. And I go merge, and I'm going to merge take two now. So take two underscore mapped. All right. And very quickly, notice that I have both characters here. I double click on George. I tell it that its input is coming from take two character. I make it active. All right. And then I go to bake those options. Bake to skeleton. All right. So that's going to transfer all the motion capture data from take two and put it onto George. And now I can delete take one by right-clicking on reference, choosing select branches. That selects every data, everything related to our initial character of take one. We're going to hit delete, confirm, delete, yes to all, yes please, thank you. And as you notice, if I play this file now, take two is now mapped onto another copy of George. So this is why I keep saving as a different file so that I always have a clean George map file. So I'm going to rename this take two underscore George. I always go back to George underscore mapped as a starting point, merge the take, transfer the data, bake it onto George, and then save a new file. Okay, so we're done. Now we can move on to the real characters. I'm going to open Character Creator 3 again. And like I said before, George only serves as a bridge. You'll see that now we can take the data from the George files and map it onto your actual character. So I'm going to go here and open a character that I've been working on for a series of videos that we're doing. Okay, and he just happens to have my name, Jose, because the series of videos are about memories of my childhood. So I have a character that I've been working on that sort of looks like me, except, you know, I'm 10 times better looking than this character. Anyway, so here is the Jose character. And okay, so he is already named Jose. And I'm going to transfer this character to iClone. So I've been working on this in Character Creator 3, and now I want to start working on it with it on iClone 7. So let's open up iClone 7. And I go back to Character Creator 3. Okay. And then very easily you can just go to File, Export, and choose Send Character to iClone. Okay, so if we look over now on iClone 7, we should have, let's see, let's go down. There is Jose. Okay. All right, so everything looks good. We can actually close Character Creator 3 and work on iClone with the character. Now, in order to get the information from the motion capture, we're going to use 3D Exchange 7. So we open up 3D Exchange 7 and file open. And now we find take, well, we're going to use take 2 because that's the one we ended up using. So take 2 underscore George. All right, takes us a little bit of time to open the character. We choose the default 60 sample per second. All right, so everything is fine. We get a warning about something that we're not sure about. We hit OK. But this is the really nice part. Because it detects that George was initially created in Character Creator 3, it can automatically do the mappings for us. So that's why it's important to create a character in Character Creator 3 that we use as a bridge. So we've loaded the character, and if you go back, if you go to the right side here, you'll notice animation. There's 2 files here. There's a calibration file, and there's the actual take data. So we click on take data, and one of the things I want you to notice is the number of frames that are part of this animation. And that's important because we're going to have to expand our project on iClone to account for that entire animation, or else when you transfer the file, it'll get truncated. So we go to the project, we go to project settings, and we're going to set the last frame to be 9999. A lot of times it's a lot smaller than that, but in this case it happens to be 9999. I go set the number for the last frame, and I'm going to change my out point to be that. And I'm going to verify by going back to the beginning, back to the end. Okay, it looks like we have enough room for the entire animation. So I'm going to go, make sure that the character is also selected before you do the transfer. And I'm going to go click on the take and then say apply to iClone from 3D Exchange. Okay, once I've done that, you will notice that now under my motion track is all the data, the motion capture data. And if I hit play, here we go. We have the data from our OpenVR that was using our HTC VIVE trackers. And now that data is mapped onto our character. So we are still lacking finger motion and lips. I'm going to show you how to add those after the fact in another video, but that is it for now. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it.